Max Verstappen has reportedly shared his concerns about Red Bull's latest move to swap the seats between Tsunoda and Lawson amid the poor performance of the Kiwi driver, with the four-time world champion having his own struggles to become one with the car. Could this turmoil turn into something bigger? And even more importantly, what does it reveal for the culture and the focus in Red Bull right now? If there is one team that is torn apart between two worlds, that's definitely Red Bull. Now that we've witnessed the shortest lived tenure with Liam Lawson, many would think that the four-time world champion wouldn't be that affected by this move because it's effectively not hurting him in any way whatsoever. There are barely any drivers who can challenge him in the same machinery, primarily because of the way he's driving the car and preferring its behaviour. But the latest report states that the anger from Max comes because the team is not focusing on the right things, and he's opposed to the decision of Red Bull to change Lawson after just 2 races in the season. Of course, there would be many naysayers here who would love to speculate that it's because Lawson wouldn't have been any threat to Max's seat whatsoever compared to Yuki. But if we're to put things into perspective, I don't think Yuki will pose a threat to Max either. The problem is with the car, which is precisely what Max said in the past couple of interviews. And just because he likes it in a certain way, it doesn't mean other drivers can adapt to it. Therefore, ruining careers left, right and centre and shattering the confidence of the drivers is not something that Max agrees with. And according to De Telegraph, the media that is very close to Verstappen and Red Bull, the displeasure with Max is sitting very high. Writing about this situation to a greater extent, the publication stated, "One can guess what Verstappen himself thinks of the decision of Red Bull's management to victimise Lawson after only 2 races in favour of Tsunoda. The Limburger also disagrees with the team's management's decision to intervene so soon." The situation with the second Red Bull seat is always going to be questionable because after Ricciardo, no driver has been able to find as much performance as Verstappen, and they have always fallen into the void of the Dutchman. Even in times where the competitiveness of the Austrian team was under a huge question mark, Verstappen has given signs that he will be the next world champion when the time comes. And now he is not very happy with the way that the team is treating the drivers, because we've seen that Albon and Gasly have found their homes in different teams and are doing exceptionally well. A report from F1 Insider has also stated that the 4-time world champion is not happy with the decision of Red Bull to make a swap between their drivers, but not because he has anything against Tsunoda challenging him in the same seat. Quite the contrary, Verstappen feels like the engineers and the team are not focusing on the most important thing, which is to build a car that can reach its limits in the hands of his teammates, not just himself. Verstappen is a huge fan of a car with an extremely sensitive front end, which is the biggest worry of any driver who would sit next to him. But on the other hand, this worry of his might suggest that he is ready to sacrifice a little bit of that in order to help the team land a more stable car for the second driver. If they manage to do this, then the situation would be much different in the Constructors' Championship, because as all things stand, the Austrian squad is at great risk of being dropped down the grid if the performance woes continue in the following period. But again, I don't think there is anyone else who can extract as much as Max can from that car. So being angry towards Red Bull, while a solid argument, is not something that will bring a lot of fruit to the table if they don't change the focus on the car rather than the driver in it. When talking about the preference of the machinery and the driving style, Horner has gone on to say that the driving style of Max is so precise and delicate that it leaves other drivers without any confidence before they even sit in it. Furthermore, the team principal of Red Bull said Max is quite specific in what he wants from a car to make it fast, and that is generally a very positive front end on the car, a very sharp turn-in. Of course, the consequence of that is it will unsettle the rear of the car, and that for a driver is tremendously sapping if you've got a loose rear end on this car on entry into corners. So that is where Max excels. That is where he is able to live on a knife's edge of adhesion. This isn't the first time that Verstappen raised his concerns towards Red Bull and their politics. We do know for a fact that he wasn't bluffing when the Helmut Marko question came on the table. Throughout the internal power struggle in Red Bull, there were reports that Horner is trying to get Helmut Marko out of the team. to which he received a call from Verstappen's camp in which the four-time world champion stated that if Marco is gone, then he is gone too. Helmut has responded to this with a great attitude, but it also goes to show that Red Bull understood that Max might believe he is above the team. This is why the latest emergency meeting in Dubai has gone exactly as the team planned, as they didn't follow the wishes and preferences of Max. There have been certain worries raised by Verstappen regarding the career of Tsunoda being ruined by Red Bull, primarily because the issue is in the car. The Dutchman hasn't really shied away from telling the media how bad the car is and that they are too slow. On top of that, they can't fix the tyre degradation issues, which is a direct indicator that a lot of work needs to be done for them to compete at the front. P4 on a pure race basis is definitely not where Verstappen would love to be finishing, and you can expect that teams like Ferrari and Mercedes are going to ramp up the competition, which will put Red Bull in a very discomforting situation. Even regarding the swap between Lawson and Tsunoda, Verstappen has gone on to say that the difference between both of them isn't that big, and if the Kiwi driver was in racing balls, he would definitely be a more competitive driver. Elaborating further on this, Max said, "If you look at the difference between the two drivers and the other teams, they are all closer together. It also shows that our car is extremely tough. I think if you put Liam in the Racing Bulls car, he will go faster. I really think so. That car is easier to drive than ours. I also noticed that when I talked to Liam. Last year, I didn't think the difference between him and Yuki Tsunoda was that big. Otherwise, the team wouldn't have made the choice to put him in a Red Bull either." The support from Horner wasn't as big as the one of Max, as the Brit has gone on to say that the team will do anything in their power to support Liam's struggles, but it seems like there has been a crucial reason revealed in Dubai's secret meeting regarding Lawson's future with Red Bull, which would definitely bring a lot to the argument as to why Liam was replaced in such a swift manner. Yes, we do have examples of Red Bull drivers being sacked through the mid of the season, with Gasly being the most recent example back in 2019. When the Frenchman was lapped by Verstappen in Hungary, it seemed like this was the end point for the Austrian team, who decided to put Albon in his spot. Both of these drivers have found their homes elsewhere, which goes to show that just because Lawson was demoted and Tsunoda was put in his position, it doesn't automatically mean that this is the end of his career. But after all, a new problem has opened up for Red Bull. Can they build a car strong enough for Verstappen and his teammate? And if not, is this the sign that the four-time world champion is already looking at other teams as his potential home? We might have underestimated the power of Zak Brown's statement when he went on to say that Verstappen will definitely leave Red Bull at the end of the year for either Mercedes or McLaren, but looking at how things stand right now, it might not be that far-fetched of a scenario at all. This is definitely something that worries the Austrian team much more than it should, because if it's not for Max, then they will definitely be midfield at their best, as they would have to start a rebuild sooner rather than later, with the 2026 regulations still being a huge unknown to the entire Formula One world. Be that as it may, do you think that Verstappen has legitimate reasons for his anger towards Red Bull? And more importantly, do you believe the words of his father Jos that if Red Bull fails to build a competitive car, Verstappen would be leaving the team sooner rather than later? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and if you want to know more about the shocking swap between Tsunoda and Lawson, make sure to check out the video that appears on your screen right now.